Alright, so today we got the reveal for Onslaught, which is a new game mode that we're going to be getting in Into the Light. So Bungie did their live stream, and versus some of the showcases we've had for expansions, obviously it makes sense that this was a slightly calmer event, but it was essentially a pretty chill one with devs playing through the new game mode. And yes, Bungie drove the community absolutely insane by refusing to show any of the rewards because they're saving that for the second live stream. Bungie are going to be doing 3 of these streams. Only time will really tell whether 3 streams is especially necessary for this update. I think a lot of players got the impression this was a pretty relaxed affair, but we did get to see the new game mode, and that's what we're going to speak about today. So Onslaught is going to be the core game mode for Into the Light. I'll be honest, a couple of weeks ago, before Bungie gave us the preview, I hadn't anticipated that they would sort of generate a new mode in itself for this update. I was anticipating we'd probably get more kind of literally reprised content. Choosing my words carefully so that I don't get cut down in the comment section when everyone says this is reprised or reskinned content, which to an extent is true, but Onslaught is a defensive game mode, and it is essentially a horde mode where we can go up to 50 different waves. And it's worth mentioning, Bungie have said there will be various versions of this. So there'll be the basic mode, which has matchmaking and everything like that, and then harder modes which require a fire team or LFG, but also can be played solo, so you can launch into a private version of this. Before we talk any more about the game mode though, a couple of bits of new loot that we did see. Of course, firstly is the Midnight Coup hand cannon, so we've now got confirmation that that is returning. Players had speculated about that based on what we saw in the artwork for Into the Light. So we saw a player using that, and the only other new thing, as far as I'm aware, that we managed to spot was the Hung Jury, which has obviously been updated for Into the Light, and it looks like the rewards for this are going to have their own kind of unique icon on the weapon thumbnail. So it's very much being treated as a mini kind of release, almost a mini season, I guess. But to speak about Onslaught, we have to defend the ADU. I'm not sure what that actually stands for. I'm probably missing something there. But yeah, we'll be defending the ADU in various different spots around each of the maps. Bungie have said there will be a couple of different locations where we can play Onslaught. The one that they showed off was on Midtown. And we'll have waves of enemies essentially trying to attack the base. So we need to fight those off. And ultimately, at the end of every 10 waves, there'll be a boss fight where we can sort of teleport to a pyramid ship, fight darkness enemies, and then return to the core map. So that's interesting, but one of the components of this, which is sort of curious, is that we'll have a handful of different tools at our disposal, including tripwires, or trip mines, but also decoy bots and turrets that we'll be able to use in the field to our advantage. And in order to use these, we need to get a currency called scrap, which will drop from various enemies. And we'll be able to spend that currency on buying new defenses or upgrading ones that we've already got. Also from higher value targets, we'll get repair batteries dropped on the ground, and we'll be able to throw these at the ADU to give it more health. So we'll slowly be able to recover its health. And there'll be this interesting mix of deciding whether to upgrade existing defenses or buy new ones. And as we move around the maps, we may end up in the same location multiple times, considering there are 50 waves, and Bungie did say, if we can defend these defenses, they will actually stay in position. So if you're fighting at point A but move over to point B, any defenses that are still up before that objective moves will actually stay in that location. But otherwise, if they're destroyed, we'll have to totally repurchase them. And this sort of suggested that the upgrades themselves would improve both the power, the sort of damage output of things like the turret, but also the health. But obviously, as we go through the waves, it will get more difficult, and there will be bonus secondary objectives. And these will appear at various different times that can drop more ammo and also have a bunch of other benefits. And in terms of rewards, we do know that there'll be scaling rewards based on our progress. So every 10 waves will spawn a boss, and defeating that boss will drop loot. And they weren't entirely clear, but they did say that the harder difficulties will have things like double rewards active, with the hardest difficulty pretty much scaling up to Grandmaster Nightfall difficulty. So getting to wave 50 on a GM level is certainly something that's not going to be easy to do. We should mention as well that they indicated there is a sort of narrative element to this. So they actually referred to seasonal story a few times. They weren't entirely clear, the developers, on exactly what that means, but we do know that Lord Shaxx will be the sort of core vendor for this. And the dev said that there'll be various characters from the past that Shaxx will be working with. And that is, to be fair, where we got a bit of another teaser for potential rewards. And one of the devs mentioned Crucible weapons of old, potentially being sort of reprised and featured once again by Shaxx in this new game mode, which potentially confirms elements like the return of Recluse, possibly. That's a very likely one, actually, based on what we've seen. I mean, I know there's an ornament for it added into the Eververse rotation this season, but who knows, we might get other things like Mountaintop. But Bungie have said in the second live stream that'll be happening next Tuesday, that's where they plan to focus on rewards specifically. So we are going to get a lot more detail about rewards. And in terms of initial impressions of the game mode, like I said, it's more than I thought we were going to get as part of a free update. A Horde mode isn't necessarily the most watchable thing either, so I didn't necessarily find it that entertaining to watch them run this Horde Horde mode. It may be more fun to actually play through it. I think especially on higher difficulties and further into the activity, it does have the potential to get pretty intense. But there definitely will be a repetitive component, given that this is a Horde mode. And they were streaming for nearly an hour. They probably spent 30-35 minutes of that at least actually running the game mode, and then they ran out of time. So they never got to wave 50 on the live stream. And so obviously playing the same game mode essentially for 30 minutes to an hour certainly has limitations in terms of how much fun that might be, but rewards are going to be a big component of this, and Bungie have pretty much kept all of the information about rewards on the down low for this stream, with the exception of a couple of teasers and the obvious midnight coup. So only time will tell, like I said, as to whether 3 streams for this particular series of reveals is really necessary, but at least Bungie are going into some depth. Some folks are saying this is a bit of an L for Bungie. I'm not sure if I entirely agree, because it's free content, right? If I jumped into the final shape and this is the piece of content that was immediately presented to us, without a shadow of a doubt, I would be disappointed with that. But as part of a free update, given that we have this delay, it's not something I necessarily want to complain about without actually having played the mode. That's just my stance. I totally understand the feedback about this potentially being pretty repetitive, reused assets and all that kind of stuff. Those are absolutely valid points, but at the same time, I think we need to get a broader understanding of all of the elements that will actually be included in Into the Light. What kind of reprised content might we see? Will we see Black Armory reprised content? Will we see the Whisper mission come back? We don't really have answers to those, and I think maybe a small section of the stream today, at the very least, could have focused on a more holistic sort of preview, even if it's pretty basic, of what we're going to see. Otherwise though, I'm still personally looking forward to checking out the content that's inside of that Into the Light update. It's going to be tiding us over for a few weeks leading up to the final shape. So for me personally, as someone who's still playing a few hours of Destiny a week, I'm looking forward to checking it out. But you guys will have to give us your thoughts down in the comment section as always. I will keep you posted when Bungie give us more clarifications. We might get a few mentions on Twitter over the next couple of days, and probably more details in the twit. So all I can do is ask for opinions from you guys. What do you think based on those first impressions of what we saw today? Let us know in the comment section, but if you've enjoyed the video for the moment, a rating below really does help us out. And also be sure to get subscribed if you want to see more Destiny content, and I will be sure to keep you posted. Otherwise though, I appreciate you tuning in today, and whatever you get up to, I'll catch you all very soon.
Yeah. Interesting. Also, too, actually, really quickly, Tom. So I know we touched on there being 10 and 50 wave versions, but we got a question in chat from Tyrkanator. Is it random matchmaking? Do you get to bring your own fire team in? Both?
So playlist is random matchmaking, or you can bring your fire team in. Yeah. And then I believe the challenge modes, of which there was a normal version and like a hard version, which goes up to GM. I believe that the normal version is match made. We can correct on socials maybe for the second one. I don't think it's match made, but I think everything supports Fire Team Fighter.
Cool, awesome. Yeah, obviously. And honestly too, it never hurts to bring in your own GM crew if you're pushing 50 waves.
No, we definitely want you to communicate in that activity on the upper end, especially. You're going to have a much better time.
Yeah, honestly. Also too, actually, while we're kind of on that subject, I remember something you mentioned earlier was, kind of one of the goals, I think from a design standpoint you were mentioning, was that it's kind of just easy to get lost in this activity. The combat sandbox that Destiny has, sometimes you just want to throw down and just test new builds, go crazy, and this is something that really seems to facilitate that.
Yeah, you might even feel it on the stream here as we're going to go deeper and deeper here. Like we've defeated the first set now. We're on the second set. We're at a new defensive location you can see here. That's near the river walk in here, and
we're to break the fourth wall. We're developers, so we were able to change it to our other faction. It's not always going to be Fallen. We have the Hive that were shown prominently in our poster art.
Oh, that's right, yeah. For the more keen eyes at home, they may have noticed that behind the scenes, the faction has changed. So when Jerome mentioned it earlier, every single one of the armies at the Witness's behest is going to go ahead and be a part of this fight, potentially. Or which ones are they, rather? Or if you don't mind me asking, I should say, Jerome. This is your...
Yeah, we've got Fallen and Hive are going to be pressing the last city, but the Taken are definitely active elsewhere. Yeah. They're sort of they're being marshaled for other purposes, which I won't...
other elements of the seasonal story are yet to be revealed. We'll let that obviously uncover itself as time goes on naturally. Yeah, there's plenty for the lore hounds out there to go ahead and discover. Jerome, when you're putting together a story like this, obviously kind of helping us realize what the Witness's mission is, what was kind of some of your inspiration as you kind of looked at this activity and the opportunity it presented to the narrative team?
We always start with the characters. The emotions of the characters, from their perspective, how they would see things, how they would react. stacked.
Certainly.
And so that's what made Shaxx a natural fit for this. It's such a gear-focused activity. It's so ferocious. We needed a voice that matched that level of intensity.
Yeah.
And so that's where we came up with Shaxx.
Yeah, Shaxx is like the perfect hype man
Honestly.
for this, right?
It's so great when you get later in the rounds and he just kind of makes you feel like you can keep going.
I mean, that's his goal, right? The Crucible is not a forgiving place, and he's there bringing folks in every single day that he possibly can. So
He's been preparing us for this. That's what the Crucible was for.
No, and that's a great way to look at this. The Crucible is preparing, fighting other Guardians to sharpen ourselves to fight a war. And this is just fighting a war.
Yeah, honestly, this is what we've been sharpening ourselves for. This is that moment. Also, too, kind of in that theme, we got a question from Cozy Spartan in chat. Are there any other weapons that are coming back? As a quick reminder, this is the first of actually three streams as well. So next week we're going to be talking about that. So make sure and mark your calendar and tune in then. Today, this is just a taste of Onslaught and kind of a first look at what's to come in the brand new activity. Joining us with Destiny 2 Into the Light.
I'm out of money. I'm broke. No.
All out of scrap already?
Yes. I bought one thing.
Someone too, like in the past, I've played, personally, like a lot of wave-based defense games. There we go. When it comes to the upgrades, I imagine, like you were saying, it's pretty logarithmic. Is there a feeling of wanting to, instead of getting, 3 level 1 turrets, get 1 level 3 turret, for example? Like, is that power gain kind of the one you want to be chasing if you're pushing those higher levels?
I think it's definitely valuable to do that as long as you can keep it safe.
Absolutely.
Right?
Yeah.
Sometimes it might be better to spread out the
that's true.
the damage, but like a lot of that's going to vary, like what augments or which enemies are coming in.
Yeah.
And you're not going to be able to control that. You're just going to have to react. Like it might be.
Yeah.
This might be an easy wave of just some thrall.
Yeah.
But it could be a bunch of exploder shanks too.
Yeah. We made sure
Tom,
to
who
do
would put a bunch of
diversity.
exploder shanks into a wave? Who on earth would possibly be responsible for that?
You can blame Noah. You can blame me for drop pods. You can blame Noah.
I've done a lot.
Everyone who spoke to their therapist about Cabal drop pods,
you know.
can go ahead and charge that directly to Tom. You can follow him on Twitter right now.
Oh no.
Yeah. Noah, Jerome, out of curiosity too, when it comes to kind of the seasonal story and where this fits in. So again, we're digging our heels in, fighting against the Witness, just sharpening ourselves. The next step pretty much is just to go ahead and hold out for as long as we can in preparation for that next battle, I'm assuming?
Absolutely. We're waiting for Crow to essentially build a bridge in concert with Morro, with help from Osiris and others. And so it's really, the universe is on Crow's shoulders.
Yeah.
And we couldn't imagine anyone better suited for the task.
Yeah.
Crow has come a long way in a short amount of time.
Yeah.
And I think he deserves an opportunity to show what he can do.
Yeah.
And I think he'll come through for us.
Still has uttered one of my favorite lines. Yeah, we went ahead and chased him into the astral plane. Well, I just shot at him until he ran away, but your way's better.